Welcome to the House on Fire podcast. Our aim is to light a fire for Jesus in the homes of those who listen through encouragement and equipping. Let's partner together to advance the gospel in the next generation. I am your host, Lucas Jackson, and I am passionate about seeing more people on fire for Jesus. When you listen to the House on Fire podcast, you'll hear from people you can rub shoulders with every week at Bethel Church, because all of our guests are from our church family. These are people striving to love God, love others, and to serve the world. Kristi, thanks for joining us today on this episode of the House on Fire podcast. So really excited to have you today. So
thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's just dive on in here. So tell us about yourself and your family.
So I am Kristi Stroud. I've been married to Dan coming up on 12 years at the end of this month.
Okay.
A little background about Dan and I. We met after both of us had we both had went through divorces.
Okay.
And about a year later, we met and he tried to start dating me, but
Okay, he tried to start. I love it.
He tried to start dating me. I was not ready at all.
Okay.
I was absolutely in friend mode. So Dan, I think it's just the sweetest. He told me that he would pray about it, and he just was strongly feeling he was to be patient with me. And patience is probably the biggest word that travels through our entire marriage, our time with our kids. And I think it was just preparing us for what was coming.
Yeah.
So anyway, what he had to do in those 2 to 3 years, it's super sweet, and it's why I love him. But we trained actually for a 5K, a 10K, and a half marathon, and we ran those together. And I thought it was just so cool how God used that time to bring us closer. We would talk about him. We would talk about our faith and how it was growing, and just how our lives were changing and how different we wanted things to be. We had really had similar situations in our marriages beforehand where I think we quickly got married not thinking about what that really was meaning.
Yeah.
And for me, there was infidelity in my first marriage, and I needed Dan to know that about me, and things that I just almost felt like I needed to be so open with that with him, because I needed that to never, ever happen again.
Yeah.
And just how we approached everything in our marriage, that we're a team. You can't get rid of me. This is till death. I will not go through that again.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was just such a cool thing that God did through us in that time. And it's cool how running can be such a cool time with the Lord.
Yeah.
It's a lot of quiet time. You have a lot of time to talk things out or just think things out. And before he started running with me, what was kind of cool was I never ran. I was that kid in gym class that I walked the mile that they told you to walk. I couldn't do it. I would run like the first block, so the gym teacher thought I was trying, quotes, trying, but awesome. I walked that mile. And I, when I was single, I would walk by myself, and pretty much I was crying and walking a lot. But there was one day in particular, I was walking down 45th Avenue and 45th Street, whatever. Everyone knows where I'm talking about. But I'm walking down, and all of a sudden I just felt like the Lord was telling me to run. And I thought, well, that is very weird because I don't run. So I just felt like, well, this has to be from the Lord because why would I run? This is just weird.
Zero history before this that you
Zero
like
history
running.
of running. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not a track star. There was nothing. It was weird.
That's awesome.
So I just started running. And as I was running, I just heard so clear, don't look behind. Don't look too far ahead. You just look right in front of you and I'm with you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if your wife told me, but I'm a crier.
She did not, but that's okay. That's okay.
I'll try not to. I'll try to hold it together. But anyway, I started
so you got into running.
I started that. I got into running. And Dan happened to meet me in this moment of time.
Like he met you for the first time and tried to start pursuing you and all that. Okay.
And it was kind of, well, do you want to train to do a 5K?
Was he a runner at all?
Well, here's the annoying thing about Dan. If he just decides he's going to do something, he'll just do it. Yeah. It's so annoying because I have to struggle. Yeah. And he just does it. And Madeline, our daughter, she's my stepdaughter, but she is the same way. Like they'll just decide they're going to run 3 miles one day and run 3 miles, where it takes me like 3-4 months to get up to that.
That's awesome.
But anyway, he decided that yes, he was going to do this with me, and we started doing that. And then it just kind of been, well, for him, I'm sure it was, how can I continue to spend time with this person?
Heck yeah.
So we then trained for a 10K and then a half. And just to go from not being able to run a mile to running over 13 miles, I thought was just, it was totally God doing it.
That's awesome. The
cool thing about when we were doing the half marathon, this is right before he proposed. But the morning of, I was at my house, he was at his house with friends, and we were all going to go. There were a group of us that were going to run, and I remember standing at my counter, and I just said, Lord, you have to take this run. Like, I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
It just was a lot of work. And I said, it was a couple weeks before that. We had gone to a wedding, and we had to run 12 miles before we got to the big race. And I struggled the whole time. My legs hurt so bad. And the whole time we ran, I was like, Lord, give me air in my lungs and strength in my legs. And I think that's all I said for about, 11 miles. Yeah. And the 12th mile, I said, Lord, this mile is yours. I can't do it. Yeah. And it was the coolest thing. It was just instantly, I just ran a mile. Nothing hurt. I felt wonderful. And I was like, Lord, thank you so much. I just bawled. I was like, I should have asked you earlier.
Yes, maybe the last 11 miles wouldn't have been as bad,
But I thought it was so neat that God chose running to matter. Like it was such a cool experience. But at that big run, I knew how hard that 12 miles had been, and I just was really not looking forward to over 13. So I said, Lord, I know you took my last mile the last time. I need you to take this whole race. You take it. This is for you. And please bless my banana.
I love it. That's awesome.
So I went, and the weird thing was that, Dan and I had done that together, and we started this race, and it was within a couple miles, and Dan started to struggle. And he said, you need to just go without me. And I just think I think God had a part in that, where he needed it to be just me, just him. And we ran, and I didn't feel tired the entire time. I ran it in a pretty good time. I was, I was better than the middle of the pack. So I thought, wow,
it's awesome.
It's so cool. I just knew it was him, because there's no way I could have done that. I would have been crawling across the finish. But it was so neat. And then it was about a month after that then that Dan proposed, and it was just kind of a whirlwind. We were friends with Pastor Jonas, and we had asked, "Is there any way that we could get married maybe this September?" And we thought, well, there's probably no way, because that's such short notice.
And how much notice was that? Like a month? Or?
3 months, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jonas said, it just so happens we have this weekend open.
That's awesome.
So at that point, it was so weird. It felt like God was planning our wedding, and I am such a person. I need everything so. Everything needs to be perfect. I need to be involved in all kinds of planning. And in this instant, I was just like, I'm just really letting God take the wheel here, and he was doing it. Yeah. We had, that fell into place. And at the time, Dan's brother was not just swimming in cash, and we happened to go to the place to buy suits, and it was buy one, get one free. So it was like, that's cool. Well, here's your free suit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And my sister-in-law, I said, well, what color do you like? And she said, well, I like this bluish color. And we called David's Bridal, and the dress that she liked only had her size and the color that she wanted. That
awesome.
Was the only one they had there.
Yeah.
And I remember driving with Madeline around, and I said, we should really go and find you a dress. Now, Madeline was 8 years old at this time, so it was just fun to have this young girl, but also terrifying because, she has a mom, so trying to figure out what a stepmom looks like. And we usually call me more of a bonus mom. I don't know why we think there's a stigma to the stepmom, but
for sure.
Anyway, we were driving around, and we were going to go pick her out a dress. And I said, well, I suppose we should find me a dress.
Yes.
And she said, yes, let's go find a dress. So we just stopped somewhere, and she helped me pick out a dress.
That's
and
awesome.
It was just a really cool, easy, just God wanting us to get married.
Yeah.
And we had our reception in Dan's backyard, and I remember people saying, ooh, should you have a plan B? What if the weather's bad? I said, God's planning this wedding. I don't think he's going to rain.
Yeah.
He's not going to rain on our day, and he didn't. It was 80 degrees and beautiful. And
that's awesome. How many years have you guys been married now?
It's going to be 12.
12 years, okay.
Yeah.
And you got 2.
We have 2 kiddos.
Right. And what's their ages?
Madeline is 20.
Okay. Is she still around in the area, or?
Yes.
Okay.
She is in her 3rd year of pharmacy school at NDSU.
Okay.
So she's thriving there. And Brooks is 5. And the reason why we have that big of a stretch is because I just had a real hard time having babies. So I had endometriosis. So it's a struggle for girls like us. So it took us a long time to get Brooks, and we did end up having to do IVF. And that was kind of a struggle for me too, because I didn't know. It kind of gets different in all of that fertility stuff. You're not sure if you're doing what you should be doing, or I don't know. There's like all these questions that kind of go through your mind. And I had just the sweetest doctor. And we were talking through IVF, because at that point they realized it was like 5% chance of me getting pregnant without going all the way to IVF. It just was very minimal.
Yeah.
And she said, Kristi, we can only do so much. We get to a certain point. And she said, God still needs to work that miracle for you to actually get pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's all she had to say. And I was like, okay, we can go ahead and do that. So we were blessed to, I mean, even the process of IVF, it seemed like a very slim chance, because we only ended up with 1. embryo that actually, worked. So that was it. It was one time, and that was all that we had. And the amount that I had that they were able to harvest, it just was like, this wasn't going to happen another time.
Yeah.
So when we were pregnant, it was just such a blessing. And we had to have a lot of patience. I mean, it was 6 years by the time we finally had Brooks, maybe even more. I'm not really good at math.
No worries.
It was a lot. It was a long time in our marriage where it was just a lot of heartache, because I think we thought we were gonna, we built this house, and our plan was to fill these rooms, and it just wasn't God's plan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you? I know Dan works, and I think you do a few things, but maybe just like your background.
Oh,
and that kind of stuff as well.
So Dan works at Hawkins Inc., and they do water treatment.
Okay. Yeah.
So your drinking water, it's. I used to always tell people, "Oh, he sells chemicals for pools." He's like, "Kristi."
That's kind of true, but
it's like, yes, but it's like a minimal amount of what we do.
That's funny.
So if you want me to really take you down a couple notches, I guess just ask me to describe what you do.
That's great. That's perfect.
Because that's how I do it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I still don't know that I can truly tell you what he does.
Yeah.
But now I feel like he's more of an upseller. He's changed jobs. He does a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
And they bring him in when they're having issues, and he figures out different chemicals that they can combine to help their issues. So that's what he does. So I call him an upseller now.
That's awesome. I love it. And what about yourself?
So I left my job when Brooks turned 2. I used to work at Houston Engineering. I ran their CAD department, so their computer drafting department. And I basically did site plans and plats, planning developments and things. I really loved doing that. But when Brooks turned 2, I had just a feeling that I was supposed to leave work. So I put in my 2 weeks, and they didn't want me to quit. So they asked if I'd stay on part-time, and I ended up doing that for a year. And then Brooks stopped taking naps, and I didn't have the opportunities to work anymore.
So 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. and then, 9 to midnight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I just have to be fully done. But when I look back now, I think God was really getting me ready to be fully done. Because I think if I would have just quit and been all the way done, it would have been too much of a shock. I was used to, I've been working since 7th grade. So I was used to going to work, having that be my purpose.
For sure.
And I think God was shifting my purpose to what it was going to be, which I know, just being a mom is a purpose, but being a mom with a kiddo that was going to have special needs, it's just it feels like a different ball game. Yeah. And I think he needed to prepare me for that. So at his second birthday, I left, and it was when he was 2.5 that we took Brooks in, because he wasn't talking. He was doing a lot of babbling, and he did it nonstop. So every time Dan's mom would call, and she's from Minneapolis, but anytime she would call just to see how Brooks was doing, and we would always say, any day now he is going to just start. It's going to be sentences, because this kid doesn't stop
He's got the build up going.
Yeah. But it kept going on like that. There just wasn't a change. So at 2.5, I took him in, because I just thought something's not right. And
most moms probably know this, but as a dad, my wife does things, and I'm like, okay, so when you say take him in, you just went to the pediatrician or whatever, right?
Well, we had gone to the pediatrician, and because he had his, they see him every 6 months.
For sure.
And she said, I think we should probably have him see a speech pathologist just to have him check him out. So I took him in, and the gal, she tries to talk to Brooks, take him through some tests, and she said, well, he definitely needs speech therapy, but I think you need to actually have him tested for autism. And that's a scary word for someone who doesn't have any background in that. I really didn't. I was pretty naive to anything like that, and walked out of there just terrified that I wasn't going to be equipped to deal with this. I didn't know what life was going to look like. Yeah. And I think Dan was more upset right away. It wasn't he was upset that Brooks might be ill, have something wrong. I think it was he was upset that someone would even suggest it. He thought that he was just a little behind. Yeah. He's going to be fine. That was kind of his thought, and I think it took him a little while to come around where we had to have discussions where I said, "Oh, we can't come at this as something's wrong with our kiddo. He just has something a little different going on. Yeah. So autism can't be a bad word in our house. Yeah. So let's nip that in the bud immediately." Sure. So then we just started, we took him in. He had to see like 5 specialists, and they diagnosed him with a speech delay, and then that he was on the spectrum for autism. So thankfully for Brooks, he has he wants to communicate with you. He wants to be part of a group. He'll do some eye contact where a lot of that stuff you just don't get.
For sure.
And the one thing that just really holds him back is a speech delay. And I think for me, I just thought, well, what does that mean? Like, what does speech delay mean? Yeah. And it's so complex where I didn't, it's not just that he's not talking yet. For a while, it was he's not really understanding. He can't register it really quickly, to give you back information. He has a hard time articulating what he's trying to say. Brooks will do, he's come so far from when he was 2 to 5. Like, it's wild how much he talks even just in the last year. But he'll tell people he loves them really quickly. I think what he's trying to say is, "Oh, I like you. Let's play. He's like, "I love you."
That's awesome.
That's super cute.
That is awesome.
But you might scare people a little bit.
Yeah. When you get 15, maybe need to cut it back a little bit,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's just, it's wild how far he's come. But we've had so much help from his speech therapy and occupational therapy at Sanford we did behavioral therapy through Pediatric Partners. They came into our house 5 days a week, so they were with him for a couple hours every day. Yeah. And it was just a lot of support, and I think that's what I needed. And slowly they've had to, where he graduates from a program, or now that we're in school, his speech therapist thought it might be too much. So we're just dialing back to just school now, where he gets speech and OT there.
Instead of going to school and then all these other things after school.
Yes. But the nice thing is that they all have tapered off slowly, because I think for me to go from all of that to nothing, you feel very alone in what you're trying to do, and just don't leave us. Yeah. We're not 100% yet over here.
For sure. And so that tapering, did that happen over the course of like a month or two, or
it's been starting since last December.
Okay. Oh wow. So that's 6-7 months. Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yep. So first ABA, he graduated out of that because he never really had a lot of behavioral issues. It was more just learning how to react when someone talks to you, like to not just ignore you completely, but to actually have a response.
Yeah.
Those gals were just amazing because Brooks couldn't say his name before that. He started with them at 3. So it was 6 months from 2.5 to 3 before he didn't see anyone. It took a long time to just get him in. But once he did, like in these 2 years, so Brooks can say his name now. He can say how old he is, where he couldn't before.
Yeah.
He says his teacher's name, which is amazing.
That's
I
awesome.
thought for sure he'd have to abbreviate her, but he doesn't. He says it, and it's like, O.D. Guard. He's like,
I love it. That's awesome.
so it's very enunciated. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay. I mean, what's like, how is this? I'm assuming your reaction and response and processing was probably different than your husband's.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I mean, you mentioned it was kind of hard for him to kind of come to the realization or just, I'm assuming the dad just in him is like, oh, I need to protect my son. I don't want to label him.
Oh, absolutely. He did not want him labeled.
And so was that and then so when all this is taking place, 6 months to get him in and all of these, from 2.5, I guess maybe almost 3, he saw someone for the first time.
Yeah.
So then, he's 5 now. So the last 2 years here in this kind of process, like, how has he, processed through these things, and how have you?
Mm-hmm.
And is it hard to do it together, or is it kind of like, I mean, he's processing differently, kind of by himself, kind of thing, or?
I think we do. We process things differently, for sure. We do, but I think we are such a team. I mean, we like to yell out Team Stroud. When we really need to.
Yeah.
We just need to come together. Or if we're just even disagreeing about something, we're like, hey, we're wanting the same thing. We just need to figure out how to go about it.
Yeah.
For this sounds really dramatic, but I think when, we're having this son, Dan had a daughter. Daughters are different. They're soft. They're cuddly. They're, want to play with dolls. Brooks, I think for a dad, you have these expectations of what it's going to look like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And your ideas kind of have to die.
Yeah.
When you have this told, this is what it's going to be. And we don't know, what Brooks's life will look like in 2 years.
Yeah.
It could be that everyone looks and he appears to be just your average kiddo in a couple years. But, parents that want to put their kids in t-ball and want to be in soccer and all these things,
yeah,
that was a no-go for us. And not that we didn't want to. We just... when he can't take direction, when he doesn't kind of understand, it's not something you can do. So all that stuff, it seems so unimportant, but I think it's just hard to just be like, your kid can't be a part.
Yeah.
So I think that was Dan's, what I saw. I don't want to speak for him, but I just think that there is just kind of there is that death of your ideas, and you have to say, well, I guess what is the plan then? What is his life going to look like?
Yeah, for sure. So how has this strengthened your guys' marriage?
I would say just because we have to be a team on so many things. It would unravel pretty quick if we weren't. You could let this unravel. It really could. So we've just, like I told you, I have said to Dan, he's with me till the end. So
he didn't have a choice.
There's no choice here. So
yeah. And I would assume, I mean, not that I've, had that full understanding of a lot of people's lives, I guess, from a home perspective, but I think it'd be probably a good assumption to assume that a difficulty like this has probably affected many marriages in a way where they're no longer together. I would assume that. I don't have any idea or statistics or whatever, but I would assume that this would be a pretty dramatic thing that would affect many people's lives, and cause them to probably separate if they're not on the same page.
Oh, I could see how it could. Because there's so much focus that you have to have on your child, just time-wise, at appointments with people in the house, like what's next. I can be set off by going to the park and having a kid not want to play with Brooks or just say something that isn't kind. And Brooks doesn't even, most of the time, he doesn't even know. He has no clue, but I do, and my heart breaks.
Yeah.
And then Dan has to, figure out how to pull me back together because he's like, it'll be okay. Like, he doesn't even know. I know that this is crushing you, but he doesn't know. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. He's been great that way. Just such a partner. Like, I think you need that with things like this because it is, we don't have a lot of time just together, just ourselves, because for a long stretch, Brooks was hard to leave with anyone because he liked to run. Yeah. He would just take off. He had no, like, this is dangerous. He didn't have that. So he was a concern. And I don't think people knew that until they were with him by themselves. And then it was, oh, this isn't that fun. This is kind of hard. So we don't get to do a lot of date nights and things like that. So, my mom, she's wonderful now, and she was back then too. It's just, I think we didn't even feel comfortable leaving him all the time either. So, and if we did,
here in town,
my mom is here.
Okay. Yeah. And so was she like, hey, I want to take Brooks. Let me take him. And you guys were like, no, we're okay. Instead of saying, maybe it was really on your mind. You're like, no, we're good. Or like, how did that go?
Well, my mom grew up with her. She was one of 15. Oh. So there were lots of kids. Yeah. So her mom didn't do that. Okay. She, there were too many.
Yeah, she had a village to take care of every day. So.
There were plus when grandkids came, there were 60 plus of us of just
this is awesome.
Grandkids.
Yeah.
So grandma didn't ask.
Yeah.
So you asked grandma.
For sure.
So my mom I believe my mom would do anything I ever would need, but she's not, that's how she grew up. So that's her, for sure. That's how she does it. Like you can ask me anytime, but she's not going to be like, hey, you guys need a date night, for sure. Because even when they had kids, they were bringing their kids with because they lived in a town without family.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the dynamic, and I don't like to ask a ton.
Yeah.
So, it's just kind of how it is.
Gotcha.
So now it's, I feel a little more like if we absolutely need to, he's getting to a point now that he's not running, he listens to you. So I think we're kind of turning a corner now where things will change a little bit, but.
So I'd like to, if I can pry this a little bit, because I'm also a person that it has to be so bad and everything in the world's got to be burned into the ground before I ask for help. It's kind of I don't know, I'd probably say a major pride issue in my own life. But a part of me, I don't know, there's reasons I have behind it, but nonetheless. So is that like a pride issue for you with just not only asking for help for Brooks, but like just in general? And so that's just not who you are, and you'd rather kind of just tackle it yourself, or,
It could be.
Okay.
It could be. I might not have labeled it yet.
No, we get some time, you're just figuring it out. And
it could be, because, I love to serve. I love serving others. I love, if I can go over to my brothers and, do their dishes. Yeah. I just love that.
Yeah.
I love if someone were to ask me to do something, that's all I want to do.
For sure. Yeah.
But I don't feel like I can do that. Is that weird?
No, I could talk for hours about this specific subject, actually, because
it's weird how that works, how you can give it, but you can't receive it.
Uh-huh. I would agree.
But I mean, if someone does something for me, I think I thank them. I probably overthink them more than they're uncomfortable.
Like, why are you thinking of me?
Quit. You've said it 6 times.
Yeah.
Please drop it.
This is awesome. Yeah, I can relate very much. So I get that.
Yeah.
And I guess I know that, for us and our family, family's always been, I guess when we lived in Texas, our family lived in the DFW area, so maybe 3.5 hours. We hardly ever, saw them or whatever still. But so we've kind of always been a little envious of families who had family in town, because by the time we factor in, like, okay, we're paying a babysitter, and if you just go to dinner at, I don't know, Olive Garden and you watch a movie, I'm at $150. I'm like, I don't really want to do that often. Like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And not that you always have to do things that, cost money, I guess, but pretty much everything costs money. So
the flip side of that. So we have all of my family is in town. So my parents are maybe a mile away. My brother's 3 miles away.
Yeah.
And then I have a younger brother too that's really close. So everybody's in town. The only time I don't like when everyone is in town is over holidays. And this seems weird, but it's because no one's spending the night. I just want everyone to come together, spend the night like we used to when we were,
for sure,
in college. We'd go home, everyone stayed, and you were together. Where now we have Christmas and then everyone heads home.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, wait, the holiday is not done.
I love
We're
it.
supposed to stay up late and watch movies. Like, I don't know. That's the one downfall of families in town. That's my only problem with it.
Nope, that makes sense. So kind of what adjustments have you had to make with your strategy for Brooks specifically? And it may not, where you probably maybe sat down and write out like, okay, here's what we're doing differently. But as you're learning on what best way to serve him and to care for him, like how did that kind of parenting perspective change and adjust for you and your husband?
For us, I think raising kiddos has always been different because Madeline was 2 when her mom and dad got divorced, when Dan and Christina separated. And, so that's kind of what she knew. So Dan has spent most of her life not having her all the time.
For sure.
So we had to navigate that, what that looks like, what it looks like for Madeline to have 2 sets of parents.
Yeah.
We decided that we wanted her to be so happy. So we were the weird couples that actually talked and sat together at her basketball games. And people thought that was so weird, but we thought, isn't this amazing though, that we're just caring for our daughter?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what's happened between anybody. We just want to love on her.
Yeah.
So we love each other and we care about each other. And that's just kind of how we did that. And then with Brooks, it was like, we already do everything so different. Like, we just do it different now too. And with him, you just have to jazz things up a bit. So I'll tell you a story. I thought it was cute so I'll give you background a little bit, but when we say grace before any meal, Dan always ends it with "Amen, brother."
Like dramatic, like "Amen, brother."
Amen, brother. He always says it funny, and that's just. But it's he's trying to engage Brooks
for sure. Oh, that's awesome.
So, and you can understand most of what Brooks is saying, but some of it is a little muddled. But you always get the "Amen, brother" at the end. But Brooks has never said that. He just says "Amen." So
this is awesome.
So, Brooks started kindergarten this year. So we are in the Bethel Kids. So now he's in the kindergarten class. It's Sunday school. Now this is big stuff. You're a big kid. There's no toys in the room. You're Sunday school. This is business.
Yeah.
So he got a Bible. We got one when he was dedicated.
Yeah.
But now this is big kid Bible. This is big
like
stuff.
Like the Adventure Bible?
Yes, he's got the Adventure Bible, and he brought that home, and he was so excited about his Bible. So before, when he got his the kids, I can't remember what one it's called, but when he got his Bible, when he was dedicated, Brooks really, it was hard to get him to sit to even read books at that time. So I didn't get into that routine of let's read your Bible.
Yeah.
Like I did this one picture one, but then once we finished that, I just like you get out of that habit.
For sure.
And anyway, we got the Bible and I said, you know what? Pastor Andy was talking about just making it, creating that habit. And I was like, I'm going to just, Brooks is to a point now that he can sit for books, even though it's the NIV and he's probably not going to grasp any of it. We're just going to read a chapter.
Yeah.
So we took his Bible. He was very excited. We read some of his other books, and I said, let's read a chapter. And we read the first, we're just starting in Genesis. Everybody's probably read Genesis 100 times because you always start reading Genesis when you're like, I'm reading the Bible this year.
That's right. That's right.
So we started in Genesis. We read a chapter, and we say, I said a prayer with him, and I tried to make it as kid, like a kid's praying.
Yeah.
And I said, I love you. And I said, good night. And I walk out and it was really quiet because Dan was downstairs watching football and I could hear him and he starts praying by himself. Uh-huh. And it was so cute. He just is like, Jesus, I love you so much. And then he starts listing off all the people he loves.
That's awesome.
And I will tell you, Maverick.
He was on the list?
Maverick made the list, and Sweet Hope made the list. And at the end, he said, amen, brother. I ran downstairs. Awesome. I was like, Dan, you should have heard what Brooks just did. I thought it was just the sweetest thing. And it was just a reassurance that, Kristi, you're just doing an okay job. I needed that this week. This week was a tough week. Last week was a tough week. Brooks going to school. Now my life looks totally different again.
For sure.
And it's like I just feel like I'm constantly, my life feels uprooted.
Yeah, new rhythms.
And just watching him go and just thinking about where he was. And now he's praying by himself. And just his love that he has for people. And I just think, I might have been sad about what he wasn't going to be, but I can't even imagine like what God has intended for this little kiddo. But it was just super special. And I thought, I wonder if this is just a one-time deal. So we did it again yesterday because this is a habit. We're doing it, Mom says. And he did it again. He just prayed out and it was more people were on the list and that amen brother made it to the end. That's again. Awesome. And this time Dan was like we were just right by the door listening to see what his prayer was. It was just super, super precious and just a gift. I think we needed it this week. So
that's awesome. How is, just the reality of kind of where you guys are with your family and with Brooks, how has that caused some frustration within your guys' marriage and relationship, or maybe even, your extended family? I mean, some people are understanding and some people are not. Mm-hmm. So, some family, says some really, really hurtful things that makes me I'm like, Jesus, you need to wait outside. You are not going to want to hear or see what I'm about to do, homie. Like, so, I mean, I would assume there's so maybe, lean a little bit with some frustrations that have happened.
I would say for the most part, we've been so blessed with family that just loves Brooks so much.
Awesome.
But, kids can be kids sometimes. And, you bring friends into the mix that are with your family. And then they'll make a comment like, I don't speak your language. Yeah. And that's not okay.
Man, as a dad, my blood pressure's going up thinking about it.
And that was Dan's reaction too. He's sitting over and he's hearing this and he said, I was about to get up because I had just happened onto a situation and I didn't hear what had been said to Brooks.
Okay.
And Brooks, he just said, what did you say to me? And that's all he kept saying over and over. Yeah. And I was like, well, what did this kid say?
Yeah.
But I said, Brooks, oh, that's not a nice way to talk.
Yeah.
We don't talk like that. And I go over and Dan's like, you should have heard what that kid said.
If I was there, I'd be like, preach it, son. Get after that dude. Get him, you know?
Yes.
Oh, man.
But then you hear the whole story and then your heart breaks for your kiddo because then you're thinking, he was going to start school and it was right before he started school. And I was like, kids can be unkind.
Yeah.
And I think it's from, fear of like what's like something's different. And I don't know if I like something different. Like, and if you're not around a kid like that, you just don't know how to deal with it sometimes, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, we had a situation where I felt like our relatives could have maybe stuck up for him. His little cousins could have maybe stuck up for him and one chose not to. But he's a little kid. Yeah. So it's like it's a good learning moment, but at the same time, his big sister said, had I heard that, he would have had to leave.
Yeah.
That is not nice.
Yeah.
So, it just shows a difference in age and maturity, and I'm sure that'll come with the little one too.
Yeah.
But stuff like that, or just having it where you feel like he's getting left out. Yeah. That's just really hard on a parent.
Yeah.
Brooks is so used to playing by himself. Madeline, she's already been in college 3 years, so she's not in the house a lot. So it's me and Brooks most of the time.
Yeah.
So he's used to hanging out by himself. So he doesn't even understand when my heart's breaking because the kid's not playing with him.
Yeah.
He's just busy in the sand.
Yeah, sure.
He's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just worry one day he will know. And then I guess we'll have to deal with that then too.
Yeah, for sure. What's kind of the Lord been teaching you guys in this season?
Well, I think from the day I met Dan, patience has just been that's been our word.
Yeah.
And I said, we should probably quit praying for patience because I think he keeps trying to teach it to us.
For sure. Yeah. Yes.
It's like, oh, you want to learn patience? Let's give you one more try.
For sure.
But it is. Patience is what we just feel like the Lord is teaching us in everything, in waiting for me to get married, in having a stepdaughter and how to navigate that, in not being able to get pregnant, in finally having Brooks, but then finding out something was different, in just the way that you have to deal with, other kiddos. And I think one passion I think that has really come out of this for me too is just the desire to make sure that every single kid is represented in things that we do here at Bethel too.
Yeah.
Because before COVID had happened, Brooks was just in the nursery and in the toddler room. So there was nothing to be worried about. I didn't even know anything was necessarily wrong at that point.
For sure.
Then everything that we found out about Brooks was during COVID. And then people weren't even going to church.
Yeah.
So when we came back, I was absolutely terrified to send him to Sunday school. And it seems weird, but it's what I felt.
Yeah.
Because I thought he'd end up being a disturbance. They'd see him as a nuisance or something. He wouldn't do what they want him to do.
Yeah.
Because I remember going back and it's like, oh, he didn't want to do this today or he didn't want to do that today. And you just kind of have that nervous energy when you would go back. And I just was, I don't know. I was so scared to do it, but God was like, you're taking him to Sunday school.
Yeah.
You need to go back. So we went back and we kind of had some of that, but it's hard with a kid with needs. Like there just needs to be things in place for that. And there wasn't at the time, and they were doing the best that they could. And now I'm just so pumped that they've come up with this Bethel Buddies program.
Yeah.
And just so that moms that have kids with any kind of extra little need, sometimes it's just, I can't sit still. You know, when you just need someone to help you maybe take a walk or do something, like sometimes that's all you need. And I think what God has worked in me is just such a patience for kids that have something that they might be a total nuisance to a classroom. Yeah. But to me, I just want to love on that kiddo. Because I just think, well, that was Brooks. And he's getting better. He still needs help, but he doesn't need as much anymore. And I just strongly feel like, you know, when you read the Bible, God typically isn't dealing with a bunch of okay, everything's all right type of people. He's dealing with the sick and with people that have issues. And I'm like, well, those should be the people we're going to first. Yeah. You know, so I feel like that is just something he has really bubbling up in me. I wish he had maybe bubbled that up before I chose my college degree.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Because now I just have this interior design degree that I'm like, well, how does that play into this?
For sure.
Because I don't know. I just want to love on kids. And Allison thankfully asked if I would be a Bethel buddy. So I'm going to try that. And my only experience is just my experience with my kiddo, but I feel like it can translate into helping out other kids here.
For sure. And lean in with that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about, because you're probably, if I remember correctly, on the first kind of conversation, even with Allison, about, hey, we want to try to figure out how to serve families who have a child with some extra needs. And so tell us a little bit about Bethel Buddies and just kind of what that is, just because there's very few people that probably know about it at this point.
Yeah. So how I understand it is that it is kind of like a para at school.
Yeah.
So some people will be with a child if they have a need that they need someone with them all the time. There is a person that's just going to be in that room with them. Yeah. And then there are some of us that will just float. And if a kiddo, it doesn't matter if they necessarily have a diagnosed special need, but maybe there's a kid that just needs a little more love that day. There's going to be people that are going to be floating and can help in that classroom that day. Yeah. Otherwise, for just people who really do have special needs, there's going to be someone that can be in that classroom to just help, because what we want to do is make sure that they're not sitting in the back just doing their own thing, but that they're as engaged as can be. Yeah. Because even, to just kind of drive home my point here, I'm reading Genesis to Brooks, which to me, sometimes the Bible can go right over my head too. Yeah. But we're reading, and last night he said, his rib, because we're talking about Adam and Eve. Yeah. And he just was like, you took his rib? So I was like, well, he is listening.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
At the same time, though, he was humming through the whole time that I was reading, and I'm like, oh, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But just his little things that he says, he's taking it in. So the idea is to just get them as involved and right in with all the other kiddos, because that's what we want to do, is have them have the opportunity as every other kiddo here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where Bethel Buddies blossomed out of. And Allison has that background in special education. Mm-hmm. So I think that is just a super beautiful gift that had come to Bethel as well. And I know that before, I think the challenge was just they they weren't sure they had enough people to help to do this.
Yeah.
But what I had told Allison is, I think you start it and God will provide what you need at this time.
Yeah.
So I think he's provided. There seems to be plenty of people right now. I'm sure there could be so many more that we could use.
Yeah.
But for right now, it's a start, and I think that's all that they needed to do.
Yeah. I often think to myself, I just want to, in my mind, care for people in such a way, and just pretend that our church is a group of 10 people.
Yeah.
And okay, what would how intentional or drastic or above and beyond would I go for a person to care for them? And so that's what I often think sometimes in churches, we get to a point, sometimes we complicate things. And I'm like, well, I don't, we just need to care for the people we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
as others come, I just think
yeah,
those accommodations will happen.
Yeah.
It does. If that is what God wants you to do, it will work.
Yeah.
It just will work. So I think it'll be great.
Yeah. In what ways has the church not helped or been difficult in some ways? You know, and church world's unique. You know, we're trying to care for everybody that we can, and we mess things up a lot. I mean, staff and individuals. I mean, we're also, when you get a bunch of sinners together, we do a lot of stupid stuff and dumb stuff, and not I don't think normally maliciously or you know, but we hurt people, and we have to confess and repent for those things and all that. So, in what ways has the church not made it harder for you and your family?
I think, you know, I don't ever like bringing up things that I've already just forgiven and let go. But I think in the one regard, the one time that we just really felt like Bethel had fallen short for our family was just in a way that an issue with Brooks was just brought to us.
So something happened, and then the way that the person
it was just
communicated
the tone.
it
was the tone,
yeah.
And I think just understanding, and maybe it's just having a kid with special needs. You just know there's certain ways that you cannot talk to a mom and dad because they're already struggling so much.
Yeah.
It's like all you want is help. That's all you want.
Yeah. And,
you know, when you get a tone, your feeling is we're not wanted here.
Yeah.
Like this is what's happening. We're just not wanted here. And that was a thought, was do we just go somewhere else? But, you know, we have relationships with some people here at church that are so good that I was like, well, here's the thing, like you said, churches are made up of people. And no matter what church we go to, they will let us down. Yeah. They're going to let us down because they are not Christ. So do we just church hop until someone talks to us in the way we want to, or do we help facilitate some changes? So that's what we did.
Yeah.
We just, thankfully, I was friends with 2 pastors' wives.
Yes.
And I just voiced a concern, and the wheels started turning.
Yeah.
And I think they were meant to turn. I think that there was a need, and God wanted that change. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
So if we had to have our hearts broken for a Sunday for that change to happen, I'm glad that it happened to us and not to another family, so that we could talk to the right people and have a change made.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that scenario. So and it's interesting to me, and like you said, it wasn't what they said was wrong, but it was the tone.
It was just the tone.
And so I think it's wise for us to take the time, especially if when there's the possibility of tension or even addressing somebody, that it's, you know, if there's some correcting, or just, I think we need to be cautious of how we say things and have some self-awareness. And not everybody has self-awareness. And so I think it's wise for us to not only to care well for families who've got a little guy with some extra needs, but even we need to be cautious of how we communicate with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general. And so I'm fascinated by how oftentimes the right information can be communicated in such a way that it could destroy a relationship when that was not the intention or the heart behind it at all. I think the heart behind that conversation was, hey, this is kind of what's going on, but it was, the tone and the communication of that did not come across that way. And so, and I was grateful that I forget how I found out, but I forget. I tend to forget details, I guess, sometimes.
It was probably one of the pastor's wives.
Yeah. Well, and I was like, for me, when I just want to care for everybody as if, we're just church of 10 people. So when there's something, I want to do everything we can to do things better and own our mistake and all that kind of stuff. And so anyway, I know that oftentimes we as a church don't always do things the best way, and it can get messy. So in what way has the church been helpful in caring for you and your family and where you guys are at in this season of life?
Well, honestly, just the changes that happened afterwards. I mean, I was in a meeting with Allison, and we were talking about ways we could just make things easier for Brooks in a classroom.
Yeah.
And just the immediate changes that were made right away, just so that he knew this is what's coming up next. Even just a picture, they put up pictures of what was going to be happening. And just to have that for him, to know that, and to put little fidget box in the room just in case he needed something like that. I thought it was just a way of loving on our family.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And it made us really appreciate that we were part of this family. I know it's hard because Bethel is so big to feel like you're a part. And it's, we've been going here for 13 years together. And I did go before that as well. But you kind of feel like you can walk in and walk out, and no one really no one really knows if you've missed. You kind of have that feeling like you're not really a part. But I think just the quick change of things and just what happened, just adding to the classrooms, just those little changes. It just really was just a reassurance that we really did belong to this family at Bethel.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe I just feel the need to just to clarify and just to be super, maybe, I don't know, I'm always raw and honest, I guess, but there wasn't this, I think there was an incident that happened and you guys weren't cared for very well. And you let us know. So we had questions and, okay, what happened? What's going on? And then, okay, how do we care for you guys?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my encouragement for those who would be listening would be, I think that's how it should be done.
Yeah.
No matter how small it is, if you feel hurt or offended or sinned against, I think instead of the Minnesota nice kind of junk that is a socially acceptable thing that I've observed in our area, which is blatantly just sin is what it is. And I think it oftentimes is celebrated. And so by just sitting down and having a conversation with the person, and I think let's figure this out. And and people need to repent, ask for forgiveness. This is how life should go. And so I like conflict. So I like those things because I've observed just in life that many people, maybe don't feel like they can have that conversation, or maybe they feel if they go to that person is just going to be like, hey, sorry, whatever, this is how it is, or, that kind of stuff. So in my mind, I'm just like, anything we can do to care for individuals, even if we have to do extra things or whatever that is, it didn't really matter. It's like, well, we want to do what we can to care for each person individually because each person is different.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so how has this season of life for you and your family, has it affected your walk with the Lord in a sense? Has it, you've mentioned multiple times this patience, and you've even looking back, you've seen these things that have prepared you in many ways for where you guys are now. So in what ways has affected your walk with the Lord?
I think there's times where something might happen and you're just as an example, if we had something happen at a playground. I'm driving home crying. And usually I'm saying, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't understand. Like, how much hurt do I need to go through? Like, what are you trying to do? Because I do believe he's been putting me through the fire since my first marriage, just to really come out, the way he wants me to be. So, you have those moments because you had just a sinful background where you just don't even want to look back at that, because you can't even, I look back and I'm like, was that me? Like, it doesn't, it's so different from what I am now, that when you're going through something, you do sometimes have that feeling of, am I still being punished for things that have happened? But at the same time, I remember back, before Dan and I were even dating, I was walking on a treadmill, and that was how the walking stuff started. Was my mom was doing a Bible study here at Bethel, and it was like Lose It for Life, I think it was called. It was kind of like a weight thing too.
Yeah.
And they decided they were going to walk 2 miles a day during Lent, every day during Lent, and it was to represent Christ's walk with the cross. And I thought, well, what a cool thing to do. So that's how it started. That's how my walking started.
Okay.
And I was doing that. But what I would do is I'd walk on my treadmill, and I had my Bible, and it was a read the Bible in a year type of Bible. So it kind of jumped around.
Yeah.
But I would read that. And when I was done with that, I would pray. And most of my prayer was bawling, apologizing for everything I had done. And that was what it was every single day. That's what I would do. I was constantly asking for forgiveness of something I had been asking for forgiveness for probably months. And there was one particular day I was doing it, and I heard very sternly, enough. Do you not think I'm big enough to forgive what you've asked?
Yeah.
Like, it's done, Kristi. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So when I have those moments now, I know that's not God telling me, you need to think about what you've done, and I'm doing this to you, because, I know that's not him. I know that is straight from the devil. And he's just trying to pull me back into that feeling of that's who I am, and I'm not. I've already come through the fire, and God has, he has worked on me to be what I am today. And these are just tough times, because this is the world we live in. We live in a sinful world, and so it's going to be tough. Do I wish I didn't have the background that I did? Absolutely. Do I wish that if I saw certain people around town, I didn't have that instant feeling of, what did you do? Yeah, I wish that was gone. But God can forgive me, but he can't take away everyone else's memories.
Yeah.
He can't take away that. I'll always carry that hurt. That'll be with me forever. That's a scar I get to carry, because that was my choices back then. But I don't believe that he's punishing me with a kid with autism. He's made me into this person because I'm the perfect mom for Brooks. Like, I'm supposed to be his mom. Yeah. So he has taught me patience. He has to teach me kindness all the time, because it is hard to be with a kiddo with special needs that just doesn't get it all the time, and you get frustrated, which you need to have that extra kindness and that extra patience. Yeah. So if I'm being taught that, he's using those experiences. He allows it to happen. He's not He's not making it happen, but he allows it, and he turns it into a way that he can work on my heart to be even a better mom for Brooks.
Yeah,
So
for sure. What things are most helpful for you and your family? Like in terms of if there were to be things that would be beneficial or for ways for people to care well for you that has been meaningful and impactful, like what would that look like?
For us, I think it's just checking in with us. I just kind of struggle with always, I kind of grew up feeling like I was a bit of the tag along. So you have that feeling throughout your life that that's kind of what you are. You're not really it's not that I need to feel special, but you just kind of feel like, oh, you're just kind of there. People forget about you. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So really for us, I think that's all it is. Like just being a genuine friend to us. I have a hard time I'm one of those people who has very small amount of friends, really good friends. I can't fake that.
Yeah.
I can't fake being a friend to someone. It's absolutely impossible for me. I just can't even carry on a really good conversation unless I care. So, and I don't mean I don't care about everybody. I care about people, but unless we have a connection, I can't fake that. Some people are really good at faking.
Yes, they are.
Faking a friendship or faking just being friendly to people. I can't do it. It's impossible for me. So my friend circle is small.
Yeah.
So there aren't all that many people to check up on you. And, my friend circle is other moms and we're busy.
Yeah.
So sometimes it gets lonely. But, and for my husband too, he is from the cities. So his friends are in the cities. And that isn't, it doesn't transfer well here because it's not here. So now that we're not as ingrained in everything Brooks does, my hope now is that we can be more involved at church just to kind of form more of those friendships.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to do that with helping with like the praise packs at church, putting stuff together like that, or for Awana. And I'm going to be in the kids crew where I welcome families and help them get checked in. And that was important. That just sounded like such a cool thing to do because that is what I've wanted.
Yeah.
Just to feel seen.
Yeah.
And I know Bethel does such a great job of always having someone there to say good morning. But I think it always struck me when someone would ask me, "Are you new to Bethel?" And I would say, it's been over a decade. But I mean, it's hard. I get it. It's hard when you're part of a big church. I come from a really little town, and we had this just super small evangelical free church that we were a part of, and everybody knew everybody, and everybody watched out for everybody's kids, and that's how I grew up. So coming to a church that can seat, 1,000, that's a big difference. So you have to work. You have to put in the work to have people know you. Yeah.
Yeah, it may be an appropriate time for me just to lean in here for a second and to say, I think it's okay to for you to never ask. You should never ask somebody at church, "Are you new?" Mm-hmm. That's not. I don't think you'd be it's not sinful, but I would say at Bethel, I think a better question is, how long have you been involved? How long have you been a part of Bethel Church?
Exactly.
So stop. So if that's you, we love you, and you should stop asking people if you're new, and just, hey, how long have you been a part of Bethel? Oh, I've been here, 15 years. And actually, I purposely don't tell people I'm a pastor. I've actually loved. Now, if they ask me, I tell them, but I have loved the amount of conversations I've had with people. Just like, hey, what's your name? How long have you been a part of the Bethel? What do you do for work or whatever? And then, there's a conversation, and then. And well, what brought you, how long have you been a part of Bethel? Oh, I've been here, since January. Oh, cool. We're from the area. I'm like, no, we came from Austin, Texas. Oh, cool. What brought you? Oh, just, my work brought me here. And so I purposely leave it out because I'm not to be, mean or whatever, but I'm trying to see if they
a genuine.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm not going to just tell them that. It's like when somebody, if they try to evangelize to me. Now, if they ask me, hey, you're a Christian? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to tell you I'm a Christian. But if they don't ask me those things, I won't tell them. And oftentimes I've been in a faith conversation with somebody who's trying to evangelize to me. And we get 45 minutes in and they finally realize like, oh, I'm a pastor. So part of me thinks if you would have asked a couple of good intentional questions, this you trying to evangelize to me could have been an opportunity for us to build each other up. And so you're trying to convince me to follow Jesus. So anyway, all that to say is, if you should never ask somebody if they're new to Bethel. The question
I will tell you, I won't. As a kids crew, as the kids crew, I won't. Yeah. I'll just say, oh, I'm so excited to see you.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, sorry. I've had many people who've been a part of church, and that question has been asked, and there's no maliciousness or no wickedness or evil in it. I just think there's a better question. And then, asking that. So, has the Lord brought about like different passions and desires in you and your husband in this season? Like, has there been things that you've just realized that, because of the family dynamics and your circumstances, that there's these other things that are kind of coming to the surface that you guys care about more, or desires that you have?
I think in this moment right now, I have really felt like I am to just be still and just to wait. I was thinking that I needed to get back into the workforce right away when Brooke started kindergarten. I had that thought like 6 months ago. Yeah. And it was like, what am I going to do? What should I do? Who do I know to contact? Because I didn't want to go back to where I was working. But I just had this feeling of just wait. So I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know what my passions are. I mean, I did go into interior design for a reason. I love putting together things for people. Like, that's just a real cool thing for me to do. But I also I shouldn't, but I have just such a low self-esteem with things like that I can't even imagine making that into a business by myself, because but at the same time, you think about it, like if God wants you to do it, you just have him help you.
Yeah, for sure.
where he gives you the strength to do that. Cause and maybe that too is just something he's teaching me, is that I really can't do anything on my own strength.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what my, what's next, or what. I know what I love to do. I love doing that. I love helping people. So we'll see what that is. My husband changed jobs, so he does a lot of traveling, and that he's been so excited about that change. So I don't know what is really going to happen next for us. It just feels like it's still, we're in a little bit of a calm right now.
Yeah. Well, something tells me the Lord will help you figure it out when the timing is just right. So,
I hope so. Well, we were sitting in church this last Sunday, and when Pastor Andy was talking about just turning off the noise so you can actually hear what God is saying, and that really spoke to me, because I think there is just so much noise that I can let in.
Yeah.
Just, anxiety of Brooks starting school. All of that just made me so anxious, and other things just happening. And I think it's just to kind of trust that Brooks is his kiddo too.
Yeah.
And just give it to God, I guess, and pray that he places very kind and patient people in his path.
Yeah.
So
for sure. What are some, and not that in this question, I'm not asking you to speak for, every mom who has a child with some extra needs, but for you guys in your experience, what are some phrases or things that people should never, ever say? Again, they probably are not malicious or wicked or evil intent, but yet that are said, or things that are phrases that are just extremely hurtful for you guys. Are there some of those things that would be helpful for other people to know about in your experience, to potentially stay away from? as to not cause, harm to somebody, or harm to you and your husband, just verbally,
Yeah. Well, like I said before, I don't even know for us if there's really phrases, but it's just your tone.
The tone. Yeah.
Everything can be said differently. Like, it's so crazy how if you just say it a little different, a total different outcome will happen.
Yeah.
So for us, it was tone. I can't even really think of anything that someone has just said that, because I usually, if I hear something, I'm like, okay, what do you think they meant?
Yeah.
What were they trying to say? Because
sure.
I always have the feeling that no one's trying to be a jerk. And if they are, something's going on with them. Like they're having a tough day.
Yeah.
Something's not going good at home.
Yeah.
And it just happened to spew out at me.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's usually what my first reaction is, because I just don't want to believe that people are truthfully trying to be ugly to me.
For sure.
I don't think that is a thing.
Yeah.
So then it just makes me really want to pray for that person and be like, oh, what's happening with you? Something has got to be going wrong, because there's no reason to be upset with me.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's a great perspective too. I often see that in students where I'm thinking, okay, wow, whatever just happened, I don't think is really the issue. So I've got questions. And for me personally, when I have conversations with people, especially when maybe there's a disagreement or something, I feel the need to say, hey, please correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Like I please, like if I am viewing this differently, or like I need you to tell me that I'm wrong, because I don't want you to think that I'm, like because of my position or whatever, that I'm somehow always right or anything. So that's a phrase I personally like. I probably say too often. Then maybe they're like, well, maybe Lucas is never confident. And that's not, and that's not the heart behind it. But the heart behind it is I could be wrong, and I need you to correct me if I'm wrong. And so tone. So that's good. Yeah, I think that's great. How can, for those listening, how can we be praying for you and your family? And next week is probably maybe a different one. Maybe tomorrow may be a different scenario. But how can people be praying specifically for you and Dan and Brooks and Madeline?
Madeline, yeah.
Madeline, yeah.
I would say just that we would have just comfort in this next stage that we're in.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, my prayer always is just that very kind and very patient people are the ones that are placed with Brooks at school.
Yeah.
And around him. Maybe a kind of a different prayer, but I've done this before, probably about 15 years ago. I had to just pray for friends. I was very lonely. I prayed for friends, and it was weird. I had people come back into my life that hadn't been in my life for 5 years, and they just showed up.
Yeah.
So probably, friend, more like people that Dan and I can both be friends with. I have some great girlfriends. I do. But I see Dan, and I hurt for him in that regard, because he just does not have that.
Yeah.
And I just think that's important, to have someone to talk to about things. Thankfully, we are best buds. We talk about a lot, but I'm sure there's some things he just would like a man's perspective.
Yeah.
And I don't have that. And a lot of times I'm always trying to be the, oh, well, did you think about this? The positive. And he's like, can I just tell you this is not going right and let me say it? But I'm like, oh, but he might have been having a bad day. And he's like, Kristi,
let me just tear up something here.
Yes, can I just say this person was horrible to me and let it just be that?
For sure. Yeah.
I will try. I will just sit here quietly and try to let you just say that.
I love it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your heart. And kind of what's going on with you and your family, and just appreciate your time very, very much.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. This was not at all horrible. I thought it could be, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. You're easy to talk to, Lucas.
I'm glad. I think I'm easy to talk to. So I Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the House on Fire podcast. Our prayer is that this podcast activates your home for Jesus. May the light of Christ burn bright through you and yours. Until next time.